What if the only way to save the people you love is to marry a man who won't even look you in the eye? The desert wind cut through the canyon like a cry from something half alive. Neon Yazzie stood on the porch of the small adobe house, her mother's coughing echoing behind her as she watched the sky turn the color of rust. In the distance, a sandstorm rolled toward the valley, thick and red, swallowing everything it touched. It felt like the land itself was trying to erase them. Inside, the coughing stopped. That silence, worse than the noise, made Neon's stomach twist. She pushed open the door. The room smelled of sage and sickness. Her mother lay still, wrapped in a woven blanket that had once been bright turquoise but now looked gray. For a heartbeat, Neon thought the woman was gone. Then her mother's eyes opened. "The storm's coming," she whispered. "Close the window." "I will," Neon said softly, though her hands trembled as she latched the frame shut. The wind rattled the wood like angry bones. The doctor hadn't come in weeks. There was no money left to pay him. The last of their goats had been sold, and the well behind the house was starting to dry up. Their lives, once filled with laughter and the sound of a weaving loom, had shrunk to dust and hunger. She poured her mother a little water, barely half a cup. "Try," she urged. Her mother shook her head. "Keep it for the boy." "I'm not thirsty," said Tommy from the corner. Her 12-year-old brother sat cross-legged on the dirt floor, carving a stick into the shape of a horse. His cheeks were sunken, but his stubborn spirit refused to dim. "You'll drink it later," she said. He didn't argue. Outside, the storm broke. Dust slammed into the walls, whistling through every crack. The house groaned as if pushed by invisible hands. Neon held her breath as the sky disappeared into a red blur. When the wind finally died, night had fallen. She stepped outside, her face and arms coated with a layer of sand. All around her stretched endless red soil and black shadows, the faint glimmer of stars peeking through. She thought of the stories her father used to tell before he died in a mining accident 3 years ago. Stories about how their ancestors once walked this land free, following the wind and the drums of the earth. Now they were bound by bills, illness, and broken promises. She went back inside and sat at the table, taking her sewing from a small basket. The fabric was rough cotton, the kind tourists sometimes bought when they passed through Chinle. Her thick fingers worked the needle quickly, but every stitch felt heavier tonight. There was a knock at the door. Neon froze. Nobody came this far out at night unless it was trouble. Tommy looked up, eyes wide. She grabbed the old shotgun from behind the door and called, "Who's there?" A woman's voice answered, calm and steady. "Toddy B. I've come with a message." Neon opened the door just enough to see a tall woman wrapped in a dark shawl, silver hair shining in the lantern light. Her eyes were sharp, the kind that measured worth in silence. "What do you want?" Neon asked, still gripping the gun. Toddy didn't flinch. "I represent the Blackhorse Ranch. My nephew Asa needs a wife. I was told you might be willing." The words hit like a slap. Neon's breath caught. "A wife? For someone I've never met?" "Not for love," Toddy said. "For necessity. My nephew was injured years ago. He walks with a cane and refuses company. The family fears for his future, for the land and the name." Neon laughed once, bitter. "And you came to me because I'm big enough to carry the load?" Toddy looked her up and down, not unkindly but directly. "Because you're loyal, hardworking, quiet, and because you need help." Behind her, Tommy coughed. The sound echoed through the small house. Neon lowered the shotgun. "What kind of help?" "The kind that pays your debts, covers your mother's treatment, and sends your brother to school. If you agree to marry Asa Blackhorse, all of that will be done. You will live at the ranch. You will be respected and provided for. And if I refuse, then I make the same offer to another woman tomorrow." The lantern flickered. Neon felt the weight of her mother's shallow breathing behind her, felt Tommy's hand brush hers. "You don't even know me," she whispered. Toddy's voice softened. "Men like Asa don't marry for knowing. They marry to keep the world from falling apart." Then she turned and walked back into the red dust. Hours passed. Neon sat alone, staring at the lamp flame until it blurred. A crippled stranger. a life on someone else's land. But the word treatment echoed in her head like a prayer she hadn't dared to say aloud. She opened the medicine box. Empty. Then she looked at Tommy, asleep, with his carving knife still in hand. He deserved more than this. She looked down at herself, at her calloused hands and patched skirt, at the belly people mocked her for. Every insult she'd ever heard returned. Fat girl, unwanted, burden. Maybe Toddy Bay was right. Maybe this was the only door open. At dawn, she packed a bundle of clothes and her mother's old turquoise comb. The desert was calm, washed clean by the storm. Her mother stirred. "Where are you going?" Quote. "To find a way to keep you alive," Neon whispered. Outside, the mailman's truck rattled down the road. He handed her a letter with the Blackhorse seal. It read, "If you accept, the carriage will arrive in 2 weeks. Bring only what you need." Neon folded the letter, pressed it to her chest, and whispered the promise that would change her life. "If I marry a stranger to keep them alive, then that's the price I'll pay." Far across the valley, a man named Asa Blackhorse stared at the same sunrise, wondering if the woman chosen for him would hate him forever. The carriage arrived before the sun had finished stretching across the horizon. It was old but sturdy, pulled by 2 mules and driven by a man who didn't say a single word. He handed Neon a folded note with the Blackhorse seal and waited with the silence of someone used to carrying other people's fate. Neon turned one last time toward her home. Her mother lay asleep, too frail to stand. Tommy, half awake, leaned against the door frame, rubbing his eyes. "You have to go?" he asked, his voice cracking. "I do," she whispered, tying her bundle tighter. "But I'll send for you, I promise." He nodded the way boys do when they want to be men. She kissed his forehead and climbed into the carriage. The mules lurched forward, and dust rose beneath the wheels. Her home grew smaller until it was swallowed by the desert. She pressed her bundle to her chest, heart pounding like the hooves beneath her. The ride stretched for hours, weaving through canyon paths, dry riverbeds, and towering stone spires. Sometimes they passed a lone rider or an old man selling pottery. No one smiled, no one waved. The driver spoke only once, pointing ahead. "That's the ranch." Blackhorse Ranch wasn't grand, it was wide. Endless reddish-gold land, a barn the size of a schoolhouse, and a main house built of stone and timber that looked older than memory. Toddy stood waiting on the porch. Her face gave no hint of welcome. "You came," she said. "I said I would. We don't like surprises here." She was led inside. The air was cooler, scented with cedar and dry herbs. Paintings of warriors, horses, and woven maps lined the hallway, an entire history she wasn't part of. "You'll sleep in the East Wing," Toddy said. "Tomorrow you start kitchen work and learn the land. Meals are at dawn and dusk. If you're late, you don't eat." Neon nodded, clutching her bundle. "But don't unpack," Toddy added. "The ceremony is tonight." Neon froze. "Tonight?" "We keep our word. A marriage was promised." "I thought I'd meet him first," she whispered. Toddy's laugh was short, sharp. "This isn't love, girl. It's a transaction. Don't get any ideas." Neon swallowed hard and went to the small room prepared for her. Sparse, windowless, neat, a jug of water on a table. She washed, changed into a simple cotton dress, and sat with her hands folded tightly. The silence was thick, heavy. The walls seemed to breathe. Just before sunset, a housemaid named Inns knocked and said, "Come, it's time." They walked into a small clearing behind the house where a few people had gathered. No music, no decorations, just witnesses and open sky. Asa stood near the center. Neon's breath caught. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark jacket. His hat hid most of his face. He held a cane in one hand. Even from a distance, she saw how his weight leaned painfully on it. He didn't turn when she approached, didn't speak, didn't look at her. His jaw was tight, his posture stiff. He looked like a man carved from shadow. The ceremony was short. Toddy recited vows in Navajo, then English. Neon said yes when asked. Asa didn't speak, just nodded once. A blanket was placed around their shoulders as tradition, but Asa didn't move closer. When it ended, he walked away without a word. No touch, no welcome, no warmth. Later that night, Neon ate dinner alone in the kitchen. Corn stew, fry bread, water. She kept her head down. Bennett entered through the back door, wiping her hands on her apron. "So you're the new bride," she said, not kindly but not cruel. Her eyes scanned Neon slowly. "Hope you didn't expect a love story." "I didn't," Neon replied. "Good." Asa doesn't talk, doesn't touch, doesn't look. He's not mean, just gone. Neon nodded. She wasn't here for soft words. After dinner, she lay in the hard bed and listened to the house creak. Footsteps echoed down the long hall. Slow, deliberate. A cane tapping wood. The footsteps stopped outside her door. Paused. Then moved on. Neon stared at the ceiling, her heart heavy. The next morning, she woke early and went to the kitchen to help Eanes. Benet watched her silently, arms crossed. "You're up early," Benet said. "Someone's got to start the fire." Benet smirked. "That used to be my job. You can have it back." Benet straightened. "No, I'm just watching, seeing how long you last." Neon didn't answer. Some people looked for weakness in everything. Later, she followed Inns to the barn to sort dry goods. "What happened to him?" Neon asked at last. "To Asa?" Inns didn't look up. "Horse accident years ago. Broke his leg bad. Broke more than that, I think." "His voice?" "No," Inns said. "Just his trust." That night, Neon waited in the hall. When Asa appeared, she stepped forward. "You married me," she said, "but you can't even look at me." Quote. He flinched like the words hit a place still raw. "I didn't ask for this," he said. "Neither did I, but we're here." He stared at the floor. "You don't have to talk," she said softly. "But I do. If I'm going to cook your food and wash your shirts and live 2 doors down, then at least look at me when I speak." He looked up slowly. Their eyes met. For the first time, Neon saw the pain in them. Not just physical. Deeper. He nodded. The next morning, he was at the table when she came in. He didn't leave. "You should eat," she said. "I'm not hungry much." Neither was my mother toward the end. He blinked, surprised. "Is she sick?" "Yes. I'm hoping I can send money soon." He paused. "You're strong." The words weren't pretty, but they were real. That night, she found him outside carving a small cedar horse. "For your brother," he said. Neon held it gently. "Thank you." "You're not what I expected," he said. "Quieter," she joked. "Smaller," he said. "Colder." She froze. "You're not cold," he added softly. "You burn." The words echoed in her chest. Something was shifting. Slowly, painfully, but real. The desert soil was stubborn, but Neon was more stubborn than anything the land could throw at her. Every morning she rose before the sky turned pink and worked the old herb garden behind the barn. At first, the dirt felt dead, dry as old bone. But Neon dug. She watered. She worked until her arms shook. By the 3rd day, Asa began watching her from the porch. He kept his distance, leaning on his cane, his face unreadable. But he watched. Every evening a small gift appeared by her door. A cloth rag, a carved spoon, a folded handkerchief sewn from the scrap of his old shirt. Tiny things, but they mattered. They came from hands that didn't know how to speak. One afternoon, as Neon knelt in the garden pulling weeds, she felt his presence before she heard him. "You don't stop," Asa said quietly. She looked up, wiping sweat from her brow. "Neither does the land." He nodded. "My mother planted that garden once." Neon paused. "Did she?" She said it helped her feel grounded, like her hands were speaking to the earth. Quote. Neon smiled softly. "Then maybe I'm learning her language." He didn't answer, but something eased in his shoulders. Days rolled into weeks. Neon built the garden up stone by stone. Asa carved more in the evenings. Sometimes they sat together in silence, not awkward anymore, but warm, comfortable, like two wounded animals learning they could exist side by side. Then one morning, Neon walked into Window Rock with Asa. It was their first time going as husband and wife. The town looked at them like they were a story already whispered. Women glanced at Neon's wide hips, broad shoulders, thick arms. Men muttered behind their hands. "That's her?" Heard she begged to be taken in. Big girl like that, desperate. Asa's jaw tightened so sharply she feared he'd break a tooth. "Don't," she whispered. He glared at a man who stared too long. "I'm not saying anything." "But you want to," she said. "I want to break a few jaws." Neon shook her head. "Just walk beside me. That's enough." They bought cornmeal, beans, soap. At every stall people looked, whispered, judged. But Neon didn't bow her head. She walked with her spine straight, chin high. Strength wasn't something she learned. It was something she grew from pain. At the edge of the market, a woman stepped forward, sharp-eyed, bitter-faced, someone Neon knew. "Your mother's dying," the woman said coldly. "And you're out here playing house with a broken cowboy." Asa stiffened. Neon stepped between them. "You think this is a game?" Neon said quietly. "If it is, you're the one who already lost." The woman sneered. "You think anyone will ever respect you?" "I don't need everyone," Neon said. "Just the people who matter." They walked away. Asa stared at her like he'd never seen anyone stand so tall. "You didn't flinch," he said. "I've flinched enough for a lifetime." He stopped the mule cart and turned toward her. "I didn't know someone could carry so much and still walk taller than everyone else." She swallowed hard. "The world taught me early I wasn't allowed to break. So I didn't." Back at the ranch, the garden greeted her with new green shoots. Asa stood behind her, watching her check the soil. "You said disgrace can grow into something," he said. "Yes." He knelt beside her, slow but determined. "Then maybe I can grow too." She looked at him, really looked. The cane didn't make him small. The limp didn't make him weak. His quiet wasn't emptiness. It was fear. "Tell me what hurts," she whispered. He exhaled shakily. "Everything. My leg, my past, my pride." "Those are just old wounds," she said. "They don't get to decide who you are now." "And who am I now?" "You're a man learning how to stand again," she said. "Not with your leg, with your heart." For the first time since she met him, Asa smiled. Small, unsure, but real. That night she found a new bundle on her bed. Inside was a pair of gloves Asa had sewn himself. The stitching was uneven, imperfect, beautiful. She pressed them to her chest. Later she stepped outside. Asa was at the fence, carving something under the lantern light. "What are you making?" she asked. He held up a small wooden horse. "For Tommy," he said. "So he knows I see him, and so he knows you weren't forgotten." Her throat tightened. "You didn't have to." "No," he said, "but I wanted to." She stepped closer. "You're not hiding anymore." He met her eyes. "Not from you." Something shifted between them, the kind of shift you feel in your bones. That night, a storm rolled in. Rain slammed the roof. Thunder cracked. Neon sat alone in her room, unable to sleep. Then came a soft knock. She opened the door. Asa stood there, soaked from the rain. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I was going to ask you that." They stood in the doorway, the storm behind him, warmth behind her. "Come in," she whispered. He hesitated. "Are you sure?" Quote. "Yes," she said. "You stood with me in the garden. Let me stand with you now." He stepped inside. They didn't touch. They didn't speak. They just sat together as the storm raged outside, their silence no longer lonely, but full. When the storm eased, Asa looked at her hands, strong, dirt-stained, gentle. "You grew something here," he said softly, "something more than a garden." "So did you," she whispered. He reached for her hand, slowly, carefully, their fingers intertwined. Neither pulled away. "You're not what I expected," he said. She smiled. Neither are you. As dawn crept over the horizon, the rain softened. The earth outside was dark and rich. The garden glistened with new life. Neon whispered, I think we can make this work. Asa nodded. I think we already are. They stepped outside together and watched the first new lavender bloom push through the wet soil, small, fragile, brave, just like the love growing between them.